Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Ohayo gozaimasu, everybody. My name is Mark McPeak. I'm the International Program Director for Child Fund Australia, and it's my great pleasure to make this presentation. Before I start, I would like to recognize, I think all of us are thinking of the people of Vanuatu. Our thoughts are with them and with those who are now preparing to go to support them in their struggle to recover. So our thoughts are with them. Child Fund is a child-focused organization working across the world. We are working to build a generation of children who are safe, resilient in what we all know is going to be an increasingly turbulent world. That's our organization. My presentation today is a DRR success story. I'm going to tell you the story of these kids and how they made a difference in their communities, and I think that their participation, their active citizenship will be essential to the future of reducing risks in the world. My story begins in 1989 with the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Since then, we know that the world has embraced the rights to survival, protection, and development for children. But in 1989, the world community agreed that children also have the right to participation in all matters that affect them. So since 1989, I think many of our organizations have been working to make that a reality. Now, how does that lead? How does the active participation of children lead to better disaster risk reduction, the subject of our work here this week? Does it really make a difference? So before I get to that, I want to show you some photos of how we usually think of children during disasters. These are photos from the Haiyan, the Typhoon Haiyan. These are mainstream media photos of how we think of children. We think of children and youth as victims, helpless. Children need rescue. We should support them. And of course, they do need protection. They do need support. But these are the images, this is the paradigm that we think of children and youth normally as needing rescue. They're passive victims. When in fact, since 1989 at least, we've begun to think a little bit differently about how children really can participate. This is the image that the mainstream media gives us of how children are affected by disasters, and of course they are affected. But here is another view of how children can actively participate. These are youth who are helping their communities prepare, actively engaged in helping their communities think about and prepare for disasters. This is some volunteers who are actively involved in the post-disaster environment. And here you have 3 volunteers working with children in a child-centered space, helping children, these are youth, working to help children build their psychosocial strength. So that's a very different paradigm, a very different way of looking at children and youth in the work that we're talking about here in Sendai. What does it have to do? What does this have to do with our work here in Sendai? Well, we know that there's a draft that our governments are working on, right? And in that draft, last one I saw was end of January, there are 3 paragraphs that relate to this topic that I'm talking about, to those children and those youth I showed you the pictures of before. So the first one, in paragraph 7, could you read that out loud, the bolded part, please? Thank you. So governments, this is in the draft text that we're hopefully working on tonight and will adopt tomorrow. Governments should engage with children and youth. That's paragraph 7. In paragraph 17, can you read the bolded part, please? Youth leadership should be promoted. This is something that we hope the world community is about to agree to. And in paragraph 34, who would like to read? Could you read that, please? The bold part. So children and youth are agents of change and should, and we believe, Child Fund, I think many of you believe, this should be must be given the space to contribute to disaster risk reduction. So these are the things that we're talking about this week, and we're very happy to see them. We'd like them to be stronger, but we're happy to see that. So that's why active participation of children and youth. That's why the case study of those kids I'm going to share with you is so important. So I never promised you a rose garden. I never promised you a rose garden, but I promised you a success story. And here comes a success story. This is a project that Child Fund in the Philippines, with the generous support of the Australian government, carried out to build the capacity, the capability of children and youth to lead in their communities the preparation for disasters, to mitigate the risks that they face. So this is the case study I want to tell you about. During this project, children and youth were actively involved through the whole cycle, from identifying risks to doing something about them to helping prepare and actually responding, the whole risk management cycle. This was consistent with the Philippines government vision of DRR, with the framework that is established. It was done in close coordination with the local government, and it was bringing in learning from previous projects that we had, both within Child Fund and also from other organizations that are here with us today, other international NGOs. The project objectives, and I want you to notice here the dates of this project. Very important to notice the dates of this project. The project objectives were to involve kids, youth, and children in preparing DRR, DRM policies and procedures, to enhance the capability of children and youth to participate, and to build the consciousnesses of local communities in 8 parts of the Philippines. Those were the objectives of the project. I don't want to bore you with the outputs, but children and youth got very involved in preparing, mapping hazards, mitigating risks, preparing for disasters in a very active way. Here are some pictures of the results. This is a 3D hazard map that those youth prepared of their community. What are the risks in their community? They did this themselves. Who knows better than the youth what the risks are in the community? This is a disaster risk mitigation effort where the youth made plantings to help stabilize an area which was of risk to their community. This is a kit for responding when the lights go out, when the disaster comes, ready and available in the community. And here is a youth. He's a little older youth, yes, but he's a youth who's got an early warning system here. So this is the story of how these kids help their communities prepare. So what? So what? So we did that project, so what? Well, I showed you these dates, didn't I? This is our project objectives. Who can remember what happened about 18 months after that? Who can remember? Back there? Typhoon Haiyan came through. That's right. So what a coincidence. In November of 2013, Typhoon Haiyan came barreling through here, changing her name to Yolanda and back to Haiyan on the way back through, right through the area where this project was implemented. We all remember the terrible images of the storm surge that came in the Philippines, of the terrible loss of life, economic damage, psychosocial damage. We all remember that. These were the images that we saw in November of 2013. So what? Again, so what? What's important about those kids that I showed you at the beginning? Why am I telling you this? Well, the advocacy of those kids that you saw led to the local government unit in these areas being much more invested in preparation and in mitigation. So those youth made a difference in the communities when the storm came. Youth trainers helped build the capacity of those communities, of other parents, of other youth in other parts of the Philippines which were directly affected. See, our project was in this area, but they reached out to help in this area. So those kids helped raise consciousness, build capacity in that neighboring part of the Philippines. The youth was involved in evacuation of families in high-risk areas ahead of the storm. This wouldn't have happened without the project. Youth helped packaging emergency supplies, and once the children were in child-centered spaces, that's what this CCS is, these are places that children can go. Child Fund works to help establish, and other organizations, and UNICEF to help establish these places. So those youth helped facilitate sessions in those places, and here you see them. These are the participants in that project. actually working to help these children in the post-Haiyan environment. And here we have a youth leader and 2 colleagues helping children really have an opportunity to recover and build their psychosocial well-being back after the storm came. In conclusion, the best 2 words you've ever heard. In conclusion, we came here, Child Fund came here, as part of an alliance with 4 objectives for this process here in Sendai. This project is a really good example of our 3rd request to all of you and to our governments to ensure the meaningful participation of children in all of these processes. It is their right. Since 1989 in the Child Rights Convention, it is their right to participate. We must facilitate that participation. It also, we know that it affects their resilience. They become stronger as they participate and contribute to their communities. It's very important for their resilience that they feel that they've contributed. I've shown you in this example that this work can actually strengthen disaster risk reduction and disaster risk management. It can have a very important impact in the communities. It's in the Sendai text, in the draft text. So let's keep it there and let's make it even stronger. And then let's make it happen in our work. Going forward, let's work together to make sure the meaningful participation of children and youth is a reality. The text, as it stands today, as I understand, the text of our declaration says, children and youth are agents of change and should contribute to disaster risk reduction. I think we can all agree to this, and this word should change to must. It's a must, it is their right, and it makes communities stronger. Arigato gozaimasu, thank you very much. And I might have a couple of moments for questions. Are there any questions? Please, my friend from Jordan, who visited Fukushima with us. Please.
Thank you, Mark. If you allow me to add one more note, making use of the idea of empowering children in the cases of disasters is the case of the school that we visited in Fukushima. Remember when the headmaster of the school refused to leave because the parents might come and ask for their children, so they wouldn't know where their children are. So the children actually led each other. The older ones were in the front, and they ran
up to the hill.
And they ran up the hill. So that's maybe it would be a good example also to arrange to manage these things in disaster risk areas.
A heartwarming example of how leadership from children saved all the children in that school in Fukushima, where we visited. Thank you very much. Other questions, please. You have a unique opportunity. Other questions? Please.
Thanks. Mark, I'm from Colombia. I just wanted to ask you, the Convention on the Rights of the Child states that children should be participants in the decisions that affect their lives according to their evolving capacities. And all this seems great, but how do you make sure that these kids stay safe and that they're not up to their necks in this? Thank you.
That's a great question. Thank you very much. And perhaps I should have mentioned that, of course, when the disaster strikes, protection has to be our priority. It is our first duty to put the interest of children first. But in the days after, in the weeks after, involving them in participating in the rehabilitation and reconstruction and in the preparation is their right of participation. But as you say, during the disaster itself, I think protection, doing no harm, we cannot put children at risk through these projects. And we actually take a lot of care with that, and I should have highlighted that. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Got about 30 seconds, please. Rev. From the Philippines. Oh no, you're going to have a hard question.
You've mentioned a lot of successes that you have achieved in your project. I'm just wondering if you could mention maybe 1 or 2 major challenges or problems that you encountered and were able to hurdle during the implementation of your program.
Thank you very much. Another good question. I think I only have time for one. Of course, there are many challenges. Our own preconceptions as adults of the role of children and youth is a big challenge to overcome. But in this case specifically, those children helped reach out to another location to build capacity, to influence a local government unit. And that's hard because they weren't from those areas. And of course, people are shy, and that was one of the biggest challenges that we faced. Arigato gozaimasu. Thank you very much for your attention.